That's some bullshit. Straight
Yeah.
up. All right. Well, Megan's here.
Hi.
Okay.
I don't know if do you have any questions for Trace? Like, I don't know, because,
Oh yeah,
when I'm not
Trace on the
talking, I
case.
think of
I
things.
saw that I thank you for coming over to my channel this morning, and yeah, so I do have questions, but I feel like you probably have already covered a lot of things that I wasn't here for, because I went ahead and played the hearing on my channel and did a little bit of just my thoughts on it before hopping over here, because Kresha and I think we're creating our studios at the same time, planning to hop on at one, and I didn't know if I was coming on hers or she was coming on mine, so I ended up just doing my own thing, and now here I am. But yeah,
Right.
I what I was saying on my channel is that it's really hard for me to see Lori and hear her voice, so I can't imagine what that must have been like in the courtroom. What were your impressions of watching her interact with her attorney?
Well, the only thing, you watched. So the only thing
Yeah.
she said today was her name and her number, or her date of birth.
Yeah, her date of birth. Yeah.
You know, they didn't really talk too much. Her attorney
Yeah.
came in. Everybody was there. The commissioner, everybody was there. And Lori was the very last one to come in. And so once she came in and sat down, they got started. So I don't recall there really being a lot of interaction between. Did you see it on the video?
Mhm.
Yes, I did. I see her body language. I see the way she walks in and out of the courtroom. She's very flirty. You know, it's hard for me because what I was saying on my channel is that, like, the Vallow that I knew is not there anymore. She is so delusional and so sick and so evil, but she looks and acts just like she did the last time that I saw her,
Well,
so that's what's hard for me.
So here's what I was telling them earlier is that, so, when you don't see just with the camera, so like the very first, there's this room off the side with these big glass windows, and they bring them in there. And so she comes in with a deputy or whatever, and then he doesn't bring her in until he gets the signal from whoever. So she's kind of over there, and she looked over, she saw us, she's scaling the room, but she appeared very, like, it's kind of a nervous smile, but I think her anxiety level, she knows that she is not. You know what I mean? I thought it was a really anxious, like, kind of, everybody here hates me, kind of like she knows that,
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
so I kind of felt like it was less of, in a way, kind of a stuck up smile, but also a very nervous smile, like she was trying to look at us to see, because we sat right behind her. So I think she was like, are they there for me? Or, you know what I mean? So she kept kind
I
of
guarantee you that she is, every time she's in the courtroom, I guarantee you she's scanning because she wants to know who's there.
Yeah.
And I think there are certain people that she's probably, like, nervous about seeing in the courtroom. So I'm sure,
That's what
sure
I saw
she's
of her with,
paying close attention.
very, very nervous was what I saw, which good, she should be, you know what I mean?
She should be. Kresha, who do you think she's nervous about seeing?
I can only relate to, like, what I do. When I push live, I don't know what it is, but something just goes, phew, and I'm just like, I get all awkward, and I'm like, "Dun, dun, dun," and then I have to kind of relax, and then I kind of get into my flow. Well,
Yeah.
so that's just me, and I don't have any red rum charges or convictions or anything. So that's just a normal day. But so there's got to be some of that. But then if she was nervous about seeing anybody, it'd be Brandon, his wife, and probably Mom and Larry, I would say. And they have been there. They've been known to pop in. So,
well, and I was telling them earlier, like, there's over on the side, there's a screen. It's got 4 different things on it, and on there you can see everybody who's on there, on the phone, or however they do it. I don't know if it's a video call or whatever, but you could see.
Remember that time when my Aunt Susan was folding damn pants or something. Her like camera popped on, and I'm like, oh my god, oh my
she didn't
god.
realize like she's on the big screen
No, she
Oh,
didn't.
that's
because
I'm like,
funny.
oh, and I'm like, oh my god, how embarrassing.
because in Judge Bareski's courtroom, there's a big, huge monitor where all the
Yeah,
people who are on Zoom can be seen on the monitor. And
and it
then
flips.
Fox 10 had its cameras in the courtroom. And so,
On
well,
there.
actually, I don't know if they did. This was the time where there was that controversy where somebody recorded it and then leaked it
Oh,
to the news station, right?
yeah.
Um,
You did a deep dive on that, so if y'all wanna go check that out, check it out on Megan's
Well,
channel.
yeah, that
this
was an
one,
interesting rabbit hole.
it had the first name, and then it just had the only thing like where there might have been a picture was just it had the person's initials.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I should read you the names and see if you recognize any of them, or I don't know if I should do that on the thing. Probably not on
Well,
the.
I'm sure that
Yeah,
it's
I can
so
text it.
before it was Kresha, it was your other aunt, right? And your mom that were on?
I mean, wait, today or
No.
before?
I mean
Oh, I mean,
before.
like, I know that my Aunt Terry's been on before, but she, like, signed in under her granddaughter's name,
Mm,
Oh, that
and, like,
could
my
be
Aunt
people signed in
Susan.
under different names.
Yeah, because she's older, she's the oldest Vallow sibling or whatever, so, I mean,
yeah.
you know what I mean, like, it depends on your tech level. So, I don't know, but I did read the names that you sent, and the only
You didn't
it's
recognize
not
any of
gonna
them?
ring a bell with me now.
Yeah.
No,
And
there's
then,
one that seemed like it was my cousin, like, Uncle Charles's cousin, my second cousin.
well, I'll tell you, I think there was the one. Did you recognize there was Brandon and your mom, and the other one? Did you recognize that name?
Yeah, there was one that I did recognize,
Oh, I
as
think
being
another one.
the
It
second
wasn't a
cousin.
cousin. It was anyway. I'll text you. But let me tell you.
Yeah.
So Megan, there was us three. My daughter was with me, and one of Kresha's other friends. There was a guy behind us, an older man. There was Justin and the camera people. There was two girls that walked in later. They both had pads. I think they were reporters. And then there was two girls that walked in and they had their ID. They were just probably from the court. People just worked at the court, random, nosy kind of just wanting to. That was it.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was it.
So I will just say, people like Lori who are manipulators, who have narcissistic traits, are always nervous about being around the people who see through them. So
That makes
Kay
sense
is
then.
certainly that.
Yep.
Brandon is certainly that.
Yeah,
You
all of
know,
us are certainly that.
anybody who knows who Lori really is and doesn't buy her BS is somebody she would not want to see in the courtroom. So I guarantee you she is hyper vigilant about who is showing up to these hearings.
Yeah.
That's a
And
very
my
good
daughter,
take, because just how
my
she
daughter,
was with Colby, and she just was trying to, like, buy him. She
Yeah.
was trying to get him on her side,
Yeah.
my
Go ahead, Deb.
daughter pointed out that she goes, Mom, she kept looking over at us, like trying to smile, like she could get, you
Win
know
you
what I
over.
mean? Like if she smiled enough at us, we might, be
Yep.
there for her or something. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's
So,
That's a good take.
it's so crazy to me to watch manipulators in action now that I know how to spot these kinds of behaviors, because that's exactly what she's doing. If she's smiling at you, she's trying to read
mhm.
you. She wants to know
Yep.
if
Oh,
you're going to
yeah.
smile back. She wants
Mhm.
to know if you're going to buy her BS. And
Yep.
Yeah, if you're gonna welcome
if you
her,
don't
or
smile at her, then she knows that you know, and then
Yep.
she knows to watch out for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
wow.
exactly. And then the other thing that really surprised me was I could see on that list, and then also who was there. There was none of the family at all, none whatsoever.
Yeah.
Does that surprise you,
Well,
Megan?
no. Do you think that Barry and Janice Cox are going to show up in public
Hell
to have
no.
people throw tomatoes at them? Absolutely not.
No, Barry's a spiritual giant, and yeah, no. Nope.
I thought maybe
Talk to her about on
Summer.
the phone.
I thought maybe Summer would be there. I thought,
No.
I don't know, maybe somebody that used to go to her ward, or I don't know. I guess,
That's a good
or
point,
even
actually.
I
Yeah,
just thought
'cause
there would be
that's what they
somebody.
do, right?
I just thought there would be somebody, you know?
That's a
Well,
good
it's
point, yeah.
I'm gonna be just a little bit snarky about
Mhm.
Mormonism here for a
Do
second,
it.
so I apologize if this offends anybody, but the Mormon MO would not be to show up at her court case, it would be to go visit her in prison because
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
literally from the Bible, you know?
Ministering.
Yeah. So I, Mixed Spunkies, you're so funny. I hit the liker on both channels. Thank you, appreciate
I like
that.
Mixed Spunky. I see him on everybody else's channel. I'm like, "Oh, look, Mixed Spunky."
But yeah, so to just briefly comment on like the family dynamic, what I predict is that I hope, I really hope that the prosecution calls Janice and Barry and Summer as witnesses.
You
I
want
really hope.
answers. I want answers. We want answers.
Because they were there. Lori and Alex went to Janice and Barry's house right after this, not right after, but later in the day. And they were all there together.
I feel
I
like she
want to
was
know.
aware.
I want to know what went on. I want to know what
Megan,
was said.
do
Yes.
you know who was at the dang pool party? Where are those people?
So I've heard that it wasn't actually a pool party, but that it was just like a family dinner or something like that. I don't know exactly what went on.
Right.
First of all,
They probably had the music going.
it wouldn't
You
surprise
know,
me if there was a pool party, because if there had been some kind of party planned in advance,
Mhm.
they would have just had the party and pretended like nothing bad happened. I mean, Lori was
that's a good
literally
point.
telling people that he had a heart attack,
Right,
So
right.
that wouldn't
And
surprise me at all. But also, I also would not be surprised if what people thought was a pool party was actually the family getting together for dinner or
See,
whatever, and there was loudness going on, because I'm fairly
it was
certain
a
there
neighbor,
was yelling and
and that's
screaming.
on video, actually.
Oh, is
That's
it?
on video.
Ugh,
Yeah, I'll have to find it because
there's
it's
so much
old,
stuff that I don't
old.
know about this freaking case.
There was a neighbor, and she was a young girl. I wanna say Tyson, what's his face? Tyson True Crime or whatever, because he also went to Zalima's house. Oh, it
oh,
might
I
have been a
remember that
news
guy.
reporter. I don't
I
quite
remember that guy.
remember.
Okay, if anybody has the video or has access to it, please send it.
Yeah,
askmegan@gmail.com, MEEGAN, 2 E's, askmegan@gmail.com. I want to see it because I want to know what people are talking about. But the other thing you have to remember too is that at the Cox house, every party's a pool party because they have a
sure.
pool.
Well,
And
that's what I was being in Phoenix. If there would have been anybody, even if a couple people came over, in Phoenix, kids don't get any exercise except the pool. JJ would have had energy. Somebody could have taken him out in the back. Kids are loud.
right,
My neighbors have 2 kids in the backyard, and sounds like the whole block is there. So
yeah,
I had always been
Yeah.
wondering who was at the pool party. Was there a pool party?
And then when
yeah.
Colby was Colby went, and I mean, he's
He
never
did
reported a
say,
pool party, so he
he
did?
did say a pool party, didn't he? Didn't he
Oh, I
actually
don't
call it a
know.
pool party?
He might have. I don't remember. I
I
remember.
don't know.
Well, actually, no. I think that who I got it from, that it wasn't a pool party, was Colby. I think I was listening to his channel, and he said something about that there were people there, but that it was not a pool party. So let's just remember, okay? There's Janice and Barry. There's Summer and her family. Summer has
And
3 kids, and
Noni
then
Boudreaux was
there
there. Was
was
she there? Was she not?
Zach,
Tylee and JJ.
Tylee, and JJ. I mean, that's a big gathering of
Yeah.
people,
And they
so
would have had to take the kids out to the pool. Yeah.
I'm
Right.
sure the kids
So
would have been in the pool, and that
Yeah.
was a tactic where, like, "Oh, we have something to discuss," the kids can be in the
Kids go in
pool.
the pool. Yeah.
out of our hair.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I'm
I
glad I
just
brought that
don't.
up and asked you.
Me too,
Yeah.
because it's been a very popular question over the years.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's just the audacity of some things, and so sometimes things can
Yeah.
appear as one thing, and maybe it's both.
Yeah,
I don't know.
both things can be true, right? It's definitely
Mhm.
possible, like, I mean, but what was the date? It was July 19th, so it's not like it wasn't anybody's
11th,
birthday, there wasn't a
July
holiday.
11th.
So July 11th, you're right, of
Yeah, I was like,
19. Yeah, 29 July
sorry.
11th, 2019, but yeah, so
Yeah,
it wouldn't have been, and I don't know what day of the week it was, do you?
Thursday,
I don't
she was
remember.
supposed to be working in the temple. That's how I know that.
Hmm.
Ain't that something?
That just it's just every time I hear something like that and two pieces click together for me,
Mhm.
it just makes me angry all over again.
Mhm. Yeah.
It makes me so angry. So angry. Like when I was a true believing member of the church, I went to the temple pretty often, and my parents were temple workers. Also, Janice and
Like
Barry
Tom
were temple
Harrison?
workers.
So is Tom Harrison. So is Tom Harrison.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But so okay. So people understand if you're not a member, you don't understand the importance of it. The temple is not a regular church building. It's not open on Sundays. People go
You have
there
to have a
during the
card.
week. It's what?
You have to have a card,
You
or
have to
you
have a card. I wish I had my little card here, but it's not here. It's with my other Mormon stuff that I pull out from time to time when I do an episode on stuff. But it has a little barcode on it. You have to pass a 2-step interview process to get the card to be allowed to go into the temple. You're not allowed to go in there without a card because it's too sacred. Not secret, sacred.
Mormon
And so,
question. Do they I mean, how I see it, how I think it would be, is that the church keeps records of who goes in and out and how long one would stay there. I would say, I would think by
yep.
the number of times they scan their card. You know what I'm saying? That's how we got temple records in the trials. So
Right.
wouldn't they be able to see that someone is going extremely excessive?
Yes, this is a good question because, and this has come up on my channel before too. Excuse me, sorry. So going back to like the temple is only open during the week, right? And people go there, to do ceremonial things. I don't want to get into all that right now. It's a rabbit hole for another day. But in order to work in the temple, you have to be asked by the temple leadership. So here's where it gets a little bit weird. What? Weird in Mormonism? What? So you have a church congregation, right? Which is where you go every Sunday. It is your regional area. There is a bishop who's in charge of the congregation, and he has 2 counselors. So those 3 people are in charge of making sure everybody in their congregation is well taken care of and running the church and whatever. Then there are several congregations that make up a stake. So this is the local level. The stake is like the regional level, right? Then several stakes make up a temple district.
Okay.
So you go to the
write this
temple
down.
that is closest to your regional area. So we have a temple here in San Antonio. There are like 4 temples within spitting distance of Lori's house in Gilbert.
Right.
So you are supposed to, so sorry, I'm getting a call. I'm so sorry. Okay.
Uh-oh.
No, it's okay. I don't need to get it or anything. I just need it to not make noise. Okay. So
Oh my God.
in a place like Arizona, especially where Lori was living, where they have several temples that are close by, like within 15 or 20-minute drive of each other, you're supposed to go to the temple where that's your regional temple, right? The one that's in your temple district, but you don't have to. So you can go to any temple you want to. So it's entirely possible that Lori was going to different temples. And the thing
And there
is,
was
like,
that one that was shut down, by the way, because it was rededicated. I want to say it was the Mesa Temple.
Yeah.
They were renovating it. So the people who work in the temple come from all these different congregations in the region. So it's very possible to work in the temple and not personally know the people that you're working with. They also have shifts in the temple. So like you'll go to work your shift and it's only a few hours long. Like let's say you go from 8 to noon in the morning. So there's like a whole schedule. There are lots of temple workers. If you can imagine, it's like a Chick-fil-A. And if you always work on Tuesday mornings, you're not going to see the people who work on Friday nights. So that's the way that it is in the temple. So Lori may not have, when she was going to visit the temple as not a temple worker, just to go, she could have gone to any one of those temples that she wanted to, and the people probably wouldn't have recognized her.
Would she have worked at the different temples or just one?
No,
right?
she would have worked at just one. So those people would have known her, right? But But you also have to remember that there's this sort of unspoken thing in Mormonism that if you Mormon harder than other Mormons, it's seen as a feature, not a bug. So
Right.
if she was going to the temple every single day, even if she was seeing the same people every time, they would be thinking to themselves, wow, what an
Good thing.
amazing woman. What an amazing woman that she's coming here every single day, that she feels like she needs to be here every day. It's like the Catholic moms who go to mass every morning, right?
There you go.
So yeah, it's weird. I would have thought that it was weird. And when I saw that social media post that Janice made on Instagram where she said that Lori was going to the temple every single day, I was like, her? Because I had never considered Lori to be that religious before. She really wasn't. Like, she was a cafeteria Mormon. I mean, we all kind of are cafeteria Mormons, but she was one of those people that checked all the boxes as long as people were looking. And if nobody
This
was
is
looking,
how Brandon Boudreaux explained that about Melanie too, whenever he
Mhm.
testified,
Yep.
Yeah.
that she really wasn't into it. He had to talk her into it. So
Yeah.
it's like, what the hell happened?
Now, Megan, I have a question.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
without getting into all of the different ceremonies and stuff, if you are just going there randomly, is there genealogy and stuff there too?
No, so the genealogy libraries are in the ward buildings, and you can do all that
Oh,
stuff
okay.
online as well. But what you do is you take your genealogical research that you've done and you bring the files to the temple. So
After your
you
angels do
could.
it.
So I want people to understand Mormons believe that in order to get into heaven, you have to be baptized with somebody who has the proper priesthood authority, and they believe that heavenly beings visited Joseph Smith and literally laid their hands on his head and gave him the proper priesthood authority. They believe that when Jesus died and all the apostles were killed, that there was no more priesthood on the earth. They believe that that Jesus and other angels came and appeared to Joseph Smith and restored that priesthood that was gone after all the original apostles were killed. So Mormons believe that they are the only ones who have the authority to baptize people for real, you know? So it's like, even if you were baptized in another faith, when you join the Mormon church, you get baptized again because now it counts, right? So they also believe that people who died without being baptized can't go to heaven unless someone gets baptized on behalf of them. And so a lot of what goes on in the temple is doing baptisms for people who have already died. And there are other ordinances that Mormons believe that you need in order to get into heaven. One is that sealing ordinance of like saying the words of like, you're now bound for time and all eternity forever. They believe everybody needs that too. And so they'll be doing that work for dead people. So when you go through the temple the first time, you go and you make promises to God for yourself. When you go through subsequent times, you take a name, somebody's name, an ancestor's name with you. And they say, like, if I was getting baptized for my ancestor, let's just say my grandma Noni Novell, I would get in the water with the priesthood leader, and the priesthood leader would say, Megan Connor, I baptize you for and in behalf of Novell Connor, who is dead. And then I would get dunked. And then I would do another name. And you would do like 10 or 15 names. So that's what's going on in the temple.
Are you serious? You get dunked over and over and over?
Kylie would do this with her. Yeah.
So when you turn 12, you can go to the temple to do baptisms for the dead. And so that's the youth would go once a month or so and go do baptisms. And when my kids went, they would go, you'd get dressed in in this white jumpsuit, and you would go and just hold your nose and get dunked 10 or 15 times.
So do you think that's a lot what she was doing? Can you go in, like, if there's other different kinds of ceremonies, can you just walk in on somebody else's ceremonies, or?
No,
not just ceremonies though.
Yeah, so they have what's called an endowment session, which is the session where you make promises to God and you get these blessings, right? That's the main ceremony. So there's baptisms, there's the endowment ceremony, and then there are the sealing ceremonies. So they have different rooms for all of this. So the baptismal font is on one side of the temple, And then there are dressing rooms for people to get changed in. And then there are 3 rooms for the endowment ceremony, the last of which is the celestial room. It's like the big pretty room that you always see the pictures of. And then off to the sides of those rooms are sealing rooms. And that's where people do the sealing ceremonies. So the endowment ceremonies have a specific time. They usually like you to register, especially if it's a smaller temple, because they only have so many seats, but there's usually plenty of room. So you know what time the sessions are happening at your temple. But if you go at, just a random time, you can go and say, I'm here to do sealings. And if I, as a single woman, go to do sealings, they'll find some other single man who can do the sealing by proxy with me. And then we'll go into a sealing room and get sealed for people who were married, while they were alive, but are now dead. So, for example, if my grandparents, obviously were married, but if they weren't members of the church, I could take both of their names to the temple. I could stand in for the woman. My husband could stand in for the man, and we would perform that sealing ceremony. So when Lori talks about that people are busy in heaven, this is the work that they're doing, like helping people find their ancestor's name. That's what she means when she says they're busy.
That also comes from Julie Rowe. I mean, that's
Mhm.
Julie Rowe has talked about that. Julie Rowe has also talked about basically how Lori said that her children, JJ was her, a grown man or whatever.
Yes. Yeah, Mormons also believe that when you're resurrected, that you get resurrected to your most perfect bodily form,
Mhm.
whether that was like at age 25 or age 30 or whatever. So they believe
In a
everybody
past
in
life,
heaven.
right? In a
Well,
past life, or
no,
is it the
not
maturity of the soul?
I never heard that about past lives, but I'll explain that in a second. But Mormons believe that when you get resurrected, that your body is going to be perfect. And so it's like there's this sort of dumb idea that's like, whenever I
Yes.
was the skinniest and healthiest is what my body's going to look like when I'm in heaven. And they
Alright.
literally believe that disabled people will not be disabled in heaven, that like they'll get a
So,
perfect body, like that's their
I mean,
reward for going through
so
life disabled.
basically, so JJ will not have his disability, and
Yep.
JJ, how is he gonna be an adult if he was never that in his life? You know what I'm saying? Because he wasn't
He
allowed that.
will be as he would have been in his adult form.
Oh,
Because
that's
Mormons
so
believe
out
that like
there.
all spirit, like we were all spirit children before we came here.
Mhm.
And then it's exhausting talking about this
I
stuff because it's
know.
so ridiculous. Anyway,
Yeah.
no, it's okay. I just have to sigh sometimes. I actually like being able to talk about it because people need to know. People think that
Yeah.
Mormons are just like, okay, first of all, members of the church, for the most part, are just really good people trying to live their lives. Most
I
of them,
agree.
like probably 95% of them. And
Yeah.
then there's this other 5% that gets attracted to the church because manipulative people are attracted to manipulative
Mhm.
organizations and they benefit from them. And so there's that 5% of people, and it's a speculative number, guys. Please don't hold me to it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But
No.
it's that small percentage of people that take advantage of institutional narcissism
Yep.
because it benefits them. And so, there are lots of people who like being in the church because it makes them feel powerful and in control. And I think Chad definitely is one of those people. Anyway,
Oh, wow.
Mormons believe that we were spirit children, that we came here to get a body, and that when we die, we will be the same way we were before we came here. But when we're resurrected, our spirit and body, of course, comes together. I think that's a pretty universal Christian belief, right? But they
Wow.
believe it's going to be a perfect body at the age at which we were
Perfect.
the most perfect, not the age at which when we die. Like, I don't know what other Christians believe about what the resurrection is going to be like, or like how old you're
Um,
going to be when you get reresurrected, but I'm pretty sure other religions don't really think about this crazy stuff.
it's like
I don't think they think of
micromanaging. It's so, I've seen this for myself with my own 2 eyes. I've read it. I've been on these forums, these blogs, and they're talking about which kingdom they're gonna be in, who they're gonna be able to go minister to, what other
Mhm.
kingdoms, and I'm just like, "Oh my god, this is so sad." It
I
is
grew up
so
in
it's ridiculous and sad.
I grew up in
It
just a first Christian church, and I don't think we really thought about the age, but we were told that you will get a perfect body. You know, if you had a body with illness or you were in pain or any of that, that you would get. I had never really thought about if you were disabled, would that mean you get you know what I mean? But
Mhm.
there was that assumption of, yeah,
You
you
just
will
made
have a
me think
perfect body.
about you made me think too just now, like, just bringing that up. I
Hmm.
remember learning or hearing, and I mean, I was raised Catholic, but basically, you're not even gonna have a body, you're just gonna be souls, and then you're not gonna know mother, father, sister, brother. Everybody is just your sister and your brother. So whatever,
Yeah.
that could just be
Yeah.
unique to the
Yeah,
situation.
I have heard people say that before, that, like, whenever
Mhm.
I talk about, eternal marriage, and some people have commented before,
You're
like,
not married, married.
"Oh, we're not gonna be married in heaven. We're just gonna all exist as a family," or
Yeah.
whatever. Anyway, yeah, it's mind
You
numbing.
know what?
Right.
I
I forget where we were going with that, because what were we
well,
talking about?
The temple.
I really appreciate it, because all this time I have been wondering, what the hell was Lori doing down there all the time? So now I really appreciate that, because I have a feel now for what
Yeah.
kinds of things she was doing down there.
Right, and just so that you're aware of what is, normal, or I guess there's nothing normal in Mormonism, but what
Normal
is,
for that.
what the regular expectation is, that they sort of suggest that if you are worthy, meaning that you have your Mormon card, that you go
You
to
can
the
bring your
temple
Bible.
at least once a month. So for
Oh,
Lori
okay.
to be going every day was very unusual. I don't know anybody else who goes every day, except for little old ladies who don't have anything better
Else
to
to
do,
do.
and their job
Um,
is to be a temple worker, like when
Mhm.
my parents were temple workers, they had a shift once a week. And so if Lori was a temple, actually, Lori was not allowed to be a temple worker. So I don't know if she actually was, because you can only be called to be a temple worker if you have no minor children at home.
Now
So
Oh,
Zach Cox said this, so and I'm trying to remember where else, but,
I think
I'll
I
put a tab on
honestly
that.
I would be really surprised if she was a temple worker, and I would not be surprised if she told people she was a temple worker, because that's kind of clouty,
Mm.
Like
yeah.
Ooh.
working on the ward level is an honor, working on the stake level is like, "Whoa, you must be really righteous," and working at the temple is like, "Whoa, you really must be righteous," because like, you're in the most sacred place all the time, so you have to be really, really good. But the truth
Wow.
is that is not the case all the time, obviously.
Wow.
Wow. So, I sent Megan a PDF that I had downloaded, in 2020, and it's from nofearpreps.com, which is Michelle McDermott. That's that whole, prepper website. And so I was looking at just in the first, like, 5 pages I read the other day, I'm like, "Oh my god. This is, like, the most accurate." I'm still waiting, like, I still haven't gone through the entire thing, but I'm still waiting to find the damn chart, to find the scale, the light dark scale rating system or something. I haven't flipped through it all, but,
Well,
I mean, they're talking about what evil spirits can do, what they control of your body, your mind, your soul, all these things, and I'm just like, "This is so close." If it's not, because I mean, these are the same people they would Chad would talk on the same circuit with,
yeah.
and I'm just like, "Wow." It's so crazy,
Yeah, so Kresha, when
just
you
what I
sent
read.
me that, so I had jury duty yesterday, and
Oh.
I opened that document, and right away I was like, "Okay, I wanna know who this guy is." So I started looking
Yeah,
I
Gillespie.
started looking him up, and I never got a chance to actually read the document,
Yeah,
because I
I
ended up
I can't
getting
wait.
released early, but,
Yeah,
and I just never got back to it. But I believe that the light and dark the rating system, I think is purely Chad, 100% Chad.
you think
But I
so?
would be curious to know if other people have adopted it, or have, adapted it to fit their particular brand, you know what I mean?
You don't think Tom Harrison, because of allegations or the rumors that he's doing this with missionaries or possible missionaries,
Potential missionaries. Well, I
Potential, there you go.
was able to verify that as recent as 2023, he was still on the missionary committee. So he was most likely determining where missionaries would serve based on their mental health. And from the lectures that I've listened to of Tom Harrison, he absolutely believes that he has the ability to tell how righteous or unrighteous a person is.
I have another shocking
Absolutely.
thing to tell y'all.
Oh,
This
no.
morning I was, well, I mean, it
I
just
better get my
really
drink.
corroborates get your damn drink. So I was, I had downloaded something, I downloaded all kinds of things, y'all, but this was a paper that somebody had written up, and anyway, so I have it on my Speechify app, so it was just reading to me, and I was following along, right? And they got to a part they were talking about the white horse prophecy, which, I mean, I've always been told or read that that's been debunked, basically. Even Leah Satili was like, "No," basically saying that it's been disavowed, yada, yada, yada. But there's this
There's
whole
another one of
thing,
those temporary
the
commandments.
double speaks. Yeah, it's double speak where it's just like, well, on the other hand, though, but what just struck me was whenever it read over the part about what the white horse prophecy was, it was talking about Mitt Romney, and it was talking about how basically the one mighty and strong, or the Davidic servant, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
in the future that's supposed to, happen and be another prophecy basically fulfilled, um, towards the end times, so, but whenever they said, and I mean, I've gone and read about the white horse prophecy. I've gone and done all this a long time ago, though. So it's like when I reread or hear something again, and I'm just like, holy crap. So knowing that Ken Krogh and Tom Harrison allegedly, according to the civil and now federal lawsuits against Tim Ballard, where they disclose the priesthood blessing, which is so interesting to me. So interesting because they write it up. So they actually had their hands probably on his head, unless they did a Zoom blessing, like
Yeah.
Alex received from Chad Daybell. Just saying. But
Just
they so
put the phone on your head.
yeah. Oh God. That's a whole nother, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. So, but in this blessing, they disclosed that Tim Ballard was going to be a future president of the United States and prophet of the Mormon Church. In the White Horse prophecy, it says that the Davidic servant, the one mighty and strong that is supposed to happen, and where the Constitution is hanging by a thread, and Mormon elder will write in and save the damn day, um, is going to be the president of the United States and the prophet of the LDS Church. And I'm just like, So were they were, according to this and according to the blessing, they were prophesying for Tim to basically fulfill end time prophecy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So
it threw me.
I knew about that because that came out during the whiteboard meeting stuff that happened. And there sort of is this conspiracy idea that the Mormon Church was trying to
Oh,
distance
um,
themselves from
oh,
from
I was
uh,
gonna say Manchurian Candidate much.
yeah, basically, that they were trying to distance themselves or no, that they're trying to appear more mainstream so that other
Yes.
Christian religions will be more accepting of them. And there's some evidence that they are doing this actually because
That
they're
trend
bleeding
is up.
members.
Yes, and that's somebody who's not, I've never been Mormon, but I've been following this movement indirectly, like, not looking for that.
Yeah,
However, I've noticed the theme big time,
yeah.
because these are
Well,
the same people who were able to put Moroni on Boy Scouts of America, uh, you
right,
know, you use their brand, and the Catholic Church couldn't do that, but the
right.
Mormon Church could
The Mormons
cross-brand.
gave more money.
Yes, that, and, they were able to use it as a tool to draw new members to the church, to the
Yeah.
covenant, so to
Yeah,
speak.
and so
Name.
there's this conspiracy theory, which I don't think is that outlandish, that the church was trying to sort of de-Mormonify some of their literature and stuff like that. They have gone into Google Maps now and changed all their icons to crosses from Moroni's. They're not Moroni's anymore. They're crosses now, and crosses have never been used in Mormon whatever. And also, the last time I said this, somebody called me a lazy learner, probably a Mormon, and said that they actually did use crosses as iconography back in the 1820s. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't care.
So
let me just say this. Mormonism, the Mormon Corporation has a history of saying one thing and doing another.
Yeah.
And it started with well, I don't know if it started with polygamy, but this is a huge example of it, right? They issued a manifesto denouncing polygamy so that they could become a state, and so that the United States government would get off their back, right?
They were like this.
Yeah, and then they were like, by the way, guys, if you want to still practice polygamy, in fact, not even if you want to, like, go to Canada and Mexico and keep practicing polygamy.
Then Romney's family went there.
Yep, my family was there. Then I have a picture of my fourth great grandfather wearing a prison suit because he and a bunch of other people got arrested for polygamy. He was my fourth great grandfather was a pretty prominent Mormon. Anyway, I'm related to all kinds of polygamists, so I got to be really careful about who I date. Let's just say I would never date anyone in Mormon land. Anyway, where was I going with this? Okay, so they secretly were practicing polygamy still in Mexico and in Canada, and then when I forget who it was, you guys, I'm sorry, my brain is devoid of some information. They were confirming somebody to a position in the government. George Fielding Smith, Joseph Fielding Smith. I can't remember. Anyway, they were like, okay, if we're gonna put you in this position, you have to like really, really double dog dare promise that you guys are not practicing polygamy. So they had to, like, he swore that they weren't doing it, even though he was married.
Did they swear on the Book of Mormon?
No.
Did they raise their arm to the square?
They probably did raise their arm to the square and swear on the Bible, but that version of the Bible is not the most correct version. So probably doesn't count. No backsies.
That is so narcissistic all in of itself right there. I swear, it's not good enough. So yeah.
So they had to issue another manifesto that said, this time really we promise, this time really we're not practicing polygamy. At the same time as, like, I'm in this house with my wife and my other two wives live across the street. Like that's how that was going. So is anybody surprised when the Mormon Church says something and then we find out later that it's not accurate? Like this is the way that this is the way they've always operated.
That's exactly, yeah. And I mean, they exhibit that to me. Like I've found more proof, not even looking for it, that they continue just doing whatever the hell they want, whenever they want, versus not. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm just like, oh, well, if they're going to do that about that, then,
the reason that they do whatever they want is because they really do believe that they're out here saving humanity, and they justify whatever they're doing by saying it's for the greater good, it's for the long term, and that at the end of the day, when Jesus comes again, everybody's going to know the truth that we were right, and they're going to see what we did as benevolent and kind, and not as backstabbing and whatever. So this idea of institutional narcissism, like, think about it. If the church was a person, what would we call them? We would call them a crazy, delusional narcissist, because they believe that they're better than everybody else. And they do whatever they want with impunity because they have so much money, and because they think that they're doing what God wants them to do. And they think that everybody's going to thank them in the end.
Yeah, no.
So to Hughes
actually
posted this comment that says, my family by my daughter's marriage make me feel so sick and sad and alienated.
Sorry.
You're the healthy one, Hughes.
Oh, hey, Hughes. Yeah, I just found that one. I don't see it. Hughes, where are you at?
Oh, it was way back. It was way back.
Okay.
It was like,
well,
I don't know, 30 minutes ago.
Here. So you're more than welcome here. And here in this space, so not judgy at all. I
Yeah.
mean, except for what Lori and Chad did.
Yeah.
I'll never get it. And so it's like, okay, until you start killing people, and not just killing people, but when you start killing my family, then I'm just like, well, you stepped on the wrong hooker's toes. Okay, because here I am.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
I didn't choose to be here. You didn't choose to be here. This is just where we ended up. And so we're making the best out of it, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. So I forget what question I was initially answering. So I apologize for going down that whole rabbit hole, but I think it's important for people to understand what it means when we say that she was in the temple every day, and that that wouldn't have been a red flag to anybody, even if they did notice, which they probably didn't. And this is getting your Mormon card, passing that 2-step interview process. We heard Lori say that she told the bishop she was either needed a temple recommend or she was going to kill her husband. And the bishop probably thought to himself, wow, she's really angry, but she wants to go to the temple. So let's help her do the right thing and give her a temple recommend. And that recommend is good for 2 years. And you don't have to go back through the interview process for 2 more years. And then when you do, you don't have to tell the truth. And if you believe that you're a
Do you
goddess
know
and everything you're doing is what God told you to do, you don't have to share that with the bishop because he's beneath you.
That's true. Do you know if Charles was a temple recommend holder?
I don't believe Charles ever
Or how
went
would
through
you
the
know?
temple. I
I
don't
don't
think
know. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's a big deal in Mormonism. You can't go until you've been a member for at least a year. And
He
I
said
don't
he was a
remember.
priesthood holder
Yeah,
in one of the conversations in the text
right.
now, and so I'm just trying to figure it out from that.
So he would have been, I don't remember what year he was baptized. 2000.
2006 is when they got married, so, I don't know either. And he was
Yeah, I
paying
don't.
tithing. He was paying tithing
Yeah, so he would
have
have been
receipts.
allowed to be a priesthood holder for sure. Like, he would have gotten baptized, and then they would have probably given him the priesthood pretty soon after that. And he could hold callings and everything, but going through the temple is a big deal. It's making promises. You have to wear the magic underwear. So I don't know. I
No, my
mean,
mom did say she saw his underwear one, oh my god. I think that might have just,
they're
answered
like
the question.
they're
Maybe
like
I'll have to ask
boxer
her again.
briefs that go down to your
He
knees
made fun of him.
and
She
a
was like,
white
"Oh my
undershirt.
god." Yeah, she told me that, so I'm gonna ask her again to corroborate that or not, because that would tell us. I mean, at that time, at least, and maybe I don't know, I'll probe a little bit more, but
Yeah.
there was something else I was about to ask.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, because I grew up in a town with a lot of LDS people, and I remember, so you hear things that you never know, but I remember somebody telling me that, like, when you have your garments, you have to, like, you bathe one half of your body by keeping your arm in one garment, and you have to, that, not true, that you
Not
No.
never
judging.
are allowed to take them fully off.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's an urban legend or if that's the way it was, like, when my parents were coming up, because I've
Okay.
heard that too. I've heard that you were supposed to, like, leave one part on even when you were having relations. So I,
Oh, gosh.
I don't know if I know the showering thing is probably not true, although, guys, again,
Okay.
it's Mormonism. It could be. But when I went through the temple, I was told that you're supposed to wear the garment day and night, and that you're not supposed to look for an excuse to take it off.
Even during
But
relations.
that it was okay to take it off for certain things, like they mentioned sports, sex, and swimming. That was when it was okay to take
Um,
it off. And then you were
that's why
supposed
Janice
to and
swam a
you're
lot.
supposed Yeah, I think you're right about that, Kresha, actually. Um,
Oh.
but it was like you were supposed to when you were done swimming, you're supposed to put your garments on as soon again as you could, right? Alexander Lamar Cox shows no LDS ordinances. He went on a mission, so he would have gone through the temple for sure
Whoa,
before
and
he
I
went.
have look, I listened, re-listened to Zach Cox's interview with Justin Lum the other day, just
Mhm.
right before I came on or something, and in there, he said that and it threw me, he said that Alex told his bishop what Lori was saying about her being a translated being and whatever, and I'm like, "How? He was excommunicated, right?" That kinda threw me, so I'm like, "Whoa, what there's something
Yeah.
there or not or
So,
something."
okay, Alex was excommunicated twice. And
Yeah.
when you are so you can go you're supposed to go to the bishop and confess your sins, right? And according to Adam and Rex, I did listen to a couple of their podcasts, but the
I
one
do.
about Alex in particular, um, they said that Alex was the kind of person who could not he felt so guilty about things that he did that he would go right to his bishop, which
Mm.
I partly believe that.
Allegedly.
I think it was more of a situation of, like, he would do whatever he wanted for, like, months and months and months and months, and then he would grow a conscience for a day and be like, "Oh, I should go tell
Gotcha.
my bishop."
That
Right,
makes sense.
so then he would,
Yeah.
like, unload on his bishop, and his bishop would be like, "Well, we gotta excommunicate you now," because he had a habit of having sexual relationships with people he was not married to, because he really, wasn't married for very long for those times he
Oh,
was.
neither
And
one.
and also he was a sex tourist, like, he would go to South America just to have sex with people. Um,
Okay, which is a really bad sex tourist guide or the sexual tourism stuff that goes on, like,
yep,
with Tim Ballard and those ops,
yeah.
and I'm just like, "Mm-mm." And
So
Colombia?
having
Oh, no.
yeah. So having confessed that stuff to his bishop, he was excommunicated, but when somebody voluntarily goes and tells their bishop that they're doing things that are bad, it's like a reluctant excommunication. It's like they call it a council of love. They're like, we
Mm.
just want we can't allow you to be a member anymore, but you can repent and come back if you show that you're faithful. So that he still would have been very much welcome in the congregation. He still
Mhm.
would have been very much like taken under the wing of priesthood leaders, like, let's get you back in the church, would have been the focus of everything, which is so hypocritical, because when you get excommunicated for saying things about the church that are true, they don't want you anywhere near their meetings or their buildings.
Right? Because then you
You
might
know,
rub off on everybody else, and they
You
might
might
find
tell the
out.
truth and somebody might believe you, so don't
Mhm.
do that.
That's so
Anyway,
cool.
so Alex was excommunicated, rebaptized, excommunicated, and I think rebaptized. I think it's 3 strikes, right? I think you
Oh,
can't
really?
go
So
back
there
then,
is
yeah.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so the question was, oh, there was no ordinances showing for him. It's it's possible that when he got excommunicated that they removed. Okay, so here's the other thing about LDS Family Search. It's it's basically a beginner's, like, it's an amateur thing.
Okay.
Anybody can get on there and put any information they want, and I found this out when I was doing my family history research. There is so much incorrect garbage on there that real researchers and real historians would just lose their minds if they had to go on there. So please don't just trust what you see on that site. Please verify it. If it doesn't have documents attached to it, don't believe it, because there are people over here claiming that they were related to Charlemagne and whatnot. So you just have to take it with a grain of salt. But
Mm.
it's possible that when Alex was excommunicated, they would have removed the records of his ordinances, because when you get excommunicated, it's like you're starting from scratch again. Like, you have to get rebaptized.
Newborn
You have
baby.
to go
Yeah.
back through the temple again and have your blessings restored, is what they call it. So sorry, that was a
Okay.
long explanation for a
No,
very
it
simple
wasn't.
question.
I remember look, and I printed these out in the very beginning, and I need to show them to you still, but there are some genealogy records. I remember, Barry and Janice, like, locked their accounts down so you couldn't see anything further, and I got on it long and this is before, though. This is right before everything happened, and I bought 2 of these actually, 23andMe kits, and I still have not taken them because that's around the same time that I found out that all this was going down, and I was like, "Oh, no, never mind." Don't want my stuff in a vault in a mountain, okay, first off. And then knowing how this is crazy too. Whenever right before all this stuff happened in 2018, so I got interested in, tracing down my family lineage, da da da. That's why I bought these. But whenever I signed up to the website, I don't even remember which one, but when I signed up to it, I signed up under my middle name, which is K, and I signed up with my first ex-husband's last name. I don't know why I did that. I'm like,
Just
"Oh,
wanted to
thank
be
God you did
incognito.
that." Yeah. Thank God, because I'm thinking that's how the church even got my address to leave the Jesus card in my living room, you know? Anyways, allegedly, I don't know. But so I was looking things up, and I remember that my great-grandfather on the Vallow side, okay, so it's very relevant as far as, like, Chad raiding my family, basically.
Yeah.
And so I know that I've said this so many times that I'm like, well, my great grandfather was adopted, JJ was adopted, so okay, Chad, your stuff sucks. You know what I mean? Like I just try to poke holes in everything. And so I asked my mom, I was like, Mom, do you know who or what the names are of great grandfather's parents so I can find out where the hell, where this goes. And anyway, so she didn't, but she was like, "Oh," and this is, I don't remember her saying this, but I do now. But she said, "Oh, Mormons love doing this." And she's like, Lori, so she actually, and so I have to ask my mom, like, because she sent me some screenshots of a Apple computer screen, like, somebody took a picture of the computer screen, like, 3 or 4 of them, and they were live photos, turns out, and they were of Lori's computer, and she had my family lineage in 2018. I'm like, "Oh, shit, is this what she sent to Chad?" Like, did we, like, cross paths just briefly, and then she used that same lineage chart to send to, uh, Peter Griffith or whatever.
Yeah.
I have some
Yeah.
icons before
Chud.
we but I'm just like, "Wow, how crazy." That's so crazy to me.
Mhm.
Just
Well,
to know that.
let me tell Megan my ancestry thing real quick. Kresha knows, a lot of them know, but I never knew who my father was. I was raised in Winslow, Arizona. A lot of LDS, but a lot of very diverse town. I grew up as in the first Christian church, but my mother would never tell me anything about my father. Nothing. Oh, his name isn't
Mhm.
worth knowing. She told some people it was this person, it was that. It was a Hispanic guy that raped her, blah, blah, blah. So I had an ancestry kit for forever and I never did it. I don't know. I did it in June of this year, and guess what I found? Flakes from Snowflake. Full of flakes from
Whoa.
Snowflake. Can
Ruh-roh.
you believe that?
Wow.
I had no idea at
Wow.
all. And then
Wow.
there it
Yeah,
is. I mean, and they are the Mormony, very Mormony Mormons. You know what I
The
mean?
Mormonist Mormons who ever Mormoned.
Yeah.
There's so
All
white.
of you people who are in the comments over here asking about laundry day, y'all, what do you do on laundry day? You have backup underwear?
Bathing suit. You have your Mormon bathing suit.
It's not like
I'm
you
like,
just
"Where
have
did
one
Lori
set
tuck
of
hers
Mormon
in at?"
underwear.
Because her ass didn't wear a whole piece. She wore a freaking two-piece.
Okay, so
Where did
yeah,
she put hers?
that's the other thing. When my grandparents were coming up, the garment was a single piece. Y'all, can you imagine like having
That's
to
Oh,
what
deal
I
with that
recall
at
seeing.
bathroom
how
time?
embarrassing.
Oh my gosh. So they
That's
used
what
to
I
Yeah.
be
recall
like
seeing.
the original garment was all the way to the wrists and all the way to the ankles, and it was a single
Oh my
piece.
god.
Then they started making them to the knee and short sleeved and one piece. Then they finally divided it into two pieces. I don't know exactly when that happened, but I didn't go through the temple until 2004-ish. And when I went through the temple, there was still a line in the temple ceremony that said, well, first of all, bow your head and say yes was always a thing. Like that, it's like the most manipulative thing.
Wow.
That's how you make your promises. Bow your head and say yes. And then the other thing was I had to promise to okay, my husband never went through the temple. So a lot of this stuff I was like, okay, what does this even mean for me? Because I don't have a man to take me to heaven. So I guess I just am out of luck. But there's a promise in there where the man has to promise to listen to the Lord, but the woman promises to listen to her husband,
Right.
who listens to the Lord.
And then he serves the
That
Lord, right? So she
they've
worships it,
taken
like,
yeah,
yeah.
like I promise to listen to my husband as he listens to the Lord. So they've taken that out now. So they're constantly making changes. And that's the other thing. They're like, oh, our gospel never changes. And then they change everything. And then there's this talk like a few months ago where the number 2 guy in Mormonism said, sometimes there are temporary commandments. Y'all, temporary commandments. Are you kidding me? Are you saying like the ones that are written on a napkin instead of written on the stone tablets? Like it's just ridiculous. It's crazy.
Wow.
But yeah, so temple garments, you were expected to, I mean, I had, there were all kinds of different ones, like they made nursing ones and stuff like that. So yeah,
And now they're sleeveless.
And I was watching.
I was at a friend's house. I was at a friend's house in the bathroom, and I saw something like on a hook, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh my gosh, that thing. So I'm over there picking them up, like looking, and there was like a one piece, like halfway down female kind of, and I'm over there like checking them out. But that was probably, 25 years ago at least,
Yeah. And also, the older generation, when you get comfortable with something, like it's hard to break that habit. So even when they came out with 2-piece garments, a lot of them continued to wear the onesie until they completely wore out. But what I was going to say is I do a analysis of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. I watch it so you don't have to. And I talk about all the Mormon things. You guys, there's this part where they go on a girls trip and one of the girls forgets her garments, which means she also doesn't have like regular underwear either. Because as a Mormon, I had maybe like 2 pairs of regular underwear for like mowing the lawn or, whatever, working out in or whatever, And so if you go on a trip and you don't bring your garments, she didn't have any underwear. And you can't just go down the street and buy garments. You have to buy them from the distribution center, which is like attached to the temple, or you have to order them online, and you have to like enter your temple recommend number. They have to verify it, so it's not like you can get a hold of garments if you aren't a card carrying member,
Yeah, that's nuts. And that's, to me, is like monopoly.
I just had an idea. I think at the distribution center, they just ask you to show your recommend and they look to see if the date is valid, but they don't actually scan it.
Oh.
So I could change the date on mine and go buy
Oh,
more Mormon underwear
you
if I
can do some
wanted
new
to.
name Noah shit. I mean, he even
No.
talked about whenever he went on Mormon Stories podcast and did his interview a long time ago.
Yeah.
He talked about how, I mean, back in the day, he would take, and like his mother would be grocery shopping or whatever, and the barcodes on the back of a canned good or something, and he would like learn how to forge it basically, and so he would forge temple recommends anyway. So I was just like, wow. I've done that with our bookboard.
There's a market for it, like for people who, and I don't know exactly how to go about it, but I probably know someone who knows someone who could do it. But like for people, when your family member is getting married and you want to go to the wedding, but you're not a card carrying member, you can get one, but also it has to be a situation where like your family members all think that you are a card carrying member and you're not, because like if I now tried to get into the temple with my family, they wouldn't let me go in. They'd be like, how did you get a temple recommend? Because I have removed my name from the records.
Yeah,
like
to maybe not be shamed if something were happened or whatever.
Yeah, I might as well be
or a wedding
in a black hole because I'm an apostate now. I'm going to outer darkness, you guys.
I know, and I'm right there with you, girl.
It'll be fun.
And so I think a lot of us are all with you, and we're okay with that, So, I think they're missing out, actually.
I do too, and that the sad part about it is that if you never find out the truth, then you spend your whole life living your life in a certain way,
controlled,
and you're controlled, and you never, and that's the thing that I think is so sad, is that there's such a focus on the afterlife that Mormons aren't really living this life. A lot of them, they're like, oh, it'll be better in heaven. I'll wait until I get to heaven and things will be better then. It's
so
like
you're rushing through this one and not even oh my God, that's so sad, man.
It's like you think that the next life is going to be so great. This life is just going to kind of be a memory, so it's not as important,
Right?
and I have to ask the question, what if this is all I get?
Yeah.
You know, how am I going to live my
Yeah,
life if this is all I get and I
exactly.
don't get to be with my family after this life is over?
'Cause
I
nobody
want to
knows.
savor every moment that I have with them now, because
Right,
guess what? If there is an afterlife, then I will have had 2 beautiful lives instead of
well,
1.
yeah, yeah, yes, it's a bonus, a lagniappe, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, and it is so sad. It's heart-wrenching. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's yes, yeah, they do have different things. The undies, all the things, Jesus jammies, all the things. But at the end of the day, you know, when you really think about it, it's so sad. It's so sad.
Yeah.
And they're
And
just so
also,
deceived people, you know? And
yeah. And I have to always, ask other people and myself this question, like, if it's not true, would you want to know? And I'm always the type of person who would say, heck yes, I want to know if it's not true. But there are some
yeah,
people who don't. There are some people who are really happy in that, they're really happy taking that drug, and it makes sense for them, and it makes
yeah,
their life peaceful. And I will tell you this, that having to completely deconstruct your worldview is very scary. You have to come against all 4 of those existential fears, and you have to find a
yeah,
way to sit with that and be okay. And it's not easy. It's really hard to do. And so I don't blame people who stay. I don't blame people who don't want to know the truth, who don't want to look at the
right.
evidence, who double down when somebody tells them something harmful about the church. They're like, nope, you're wrong. I get it. I totally 100% get it.
The whole
Um,
world.
but also to ask, to sort of look at this, Jenny Allison commented, I couldn't go into my friend's wedding ceremony because I'm not Mormon. I felt bad for his sisters because they couldn't go in due to not being baptized. And I will tell you guys, so I got married when I was 20, but I married a man who was not a member. And so we didn't get married in the temple. So I didn't go through the temple. And when I told my bishop, I was like, I want to go through the temple by myself because I want to make those promises to God. And he said, I would counsel you to wait for your husband. So my husband did get baptized about 2 years after we were married. And he was only in for like 4 months before he was like, this is not for me.
Yeah.
And it was heartbreaking for me because my goal was to get to the temple. That's like the
Eternal.
ultimate Mormon goal, right? Um,
Right.
and so when I realized he wasn't coming back, my bishop, I had a different bishop then who said, like, yeah, it will be better if you wait, because if you go through the temple without him, your knowledge and intelligence is going to increase exponentially and his is going to stay the same, and you guys are going to be too far apart. And I was like,
Wow.
okay, I don't want that, and then also like having to explain the Mormon underwear to him, when he
Oh
he was,
gosh.
we're not supposed to talk about it outside of the temple. So when he asked
And
me
you
what
were
the
in Utah.
markings were on my Mormon underwear, I said, I can't tell you.
Oh,
That's how Mormon I was.
you are so Mormon.
I was so Mormon. So I
Oh my
waited
god.
for about 10 years after we were married to go through the temple because I didn't want to have that distance between us. And
Right.
I kept asking God, like, is it time now? Is it time now? Is it time now? And I finally felt okay about it. So I went through the temple, like I said, around 2004. You guys, I missed all of the weddings of my siblings. I stood
It's so
outside the
sad.
temple when my sister was getting married, and I cried my eyes out because that's my sister. I love her more
Yeah,
than I
y'all
love anybody in the whole world almost, and to
mhm.
not be there for the most important day of her life, to have to stand outside the door, that's so
It
humiliating.
it's
I was
dehumanizing
like
and
the only
rude. Yeah, it's
in the
mean.
family who had to be outside the temple. The rest of my whole family was in there, and I was outside with the kids who hadn't been baptized.
So and I mean, for your sister who was there and didn't get to have you, her sister, at her side, or
Yeah,
it's so for a faith who preaches and teaches that families can be together forever when they're actually not allowing that here on earth in this life is
yep.
so like, what?
It's family with an asterisk. Families
There you
can be
Well,
go.
together. Some conditions may apply. See the fine print, because
well,
they're not
especially
about families.
you hadn't done anything wrong. You were still doing all your LDS stuff,
Yep.
except for the husband, you
I
know,
was
like,
super faithful at that time. I was trying to Mormon so
wow.
hard because I hadn't been through the temple. I felt like I had to prove that I was good because I didn't have that card, you know? So
Mhm.
I
Wow.
was spending hours and hours and hours doing church service and church work so that I could feel acceptable in Mormonism.
I want to share this with y'all real
That is
quick.
painful.
And
Yeah.
this was in Tim Ballard's federal lawsuit. Attached as evidence. Uh-oh. Oh, that's him. Okay, my bad.
It's like, Catherine, we need to spice up things, you know? Because, like, things aren't great right now. But, you know, to spice it up, like, let's not, like, where our Jesus champions is bed. I've made a covenant. And I'm like, really? Where's in the scriptures that says you wear these? Because Joseph Smith was killed not wearing them. Like, they're great. They're great, whatever. They're fine. They're symbolic, whatever. But it's like,
Whatever.
it's like Catherine, it's like this lady naked.
Oh, you know, that's just so, I don't know. I just found that very telling, you know. Let me fix this, allegedly. Anyway, so
Yeah.
I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, and that
Anyway.
it's also one of those things that like we get so shamed when we mess up even a little bit or do something even a little bit wrong that we're afraid. And I'm having so much compassion for Tim Ballard's wife right now. I don't know what kind of a person she actually is, but I'm just thinking
I have
about
no
that
idea.
scenario, right?
Yeah.
She is such a faithful person that she's afraid to say to her husband, "Yes, I will lay naked with you because I made a promise to God to wear these
Or
garments."
to him, and then to
Yeah, but
yeah,
what
to him.
what about your I just
She gives
God, it's
blessings too, which I find interesting, just like
so
Lori.
okay, I want to clear this thing up now. This is an important thing too. When you go through the temple, you are sort of the idea is that you're blessed with the power of God, right? You have access, you have special access to more power because you've made these promises, right? And in the temple, the women temple workers do lay their hands on the heads of women and give them blessings as part of the ceremony. And so women who have been through the temple do have access to the power of the priesthood. And so back in the early Mormon times, women didn't hold offices in the priesthood, but they were encouraged to bless people and pray in that way. And I've done that before for my own kids when I had a
Sickness,
husband that wasn't
healing, yeah.
faithful, who didn't have the priesthood, but I had access to it because I'd been through the temple. So it doesn't surprise me whenever I hear people say that women, you know, they've heard of Mormon women laying their hands on people's head and giving a blessing. That's not surprising to me.
Mhm.
It is surprising to hear Lori on the call with Colby say that she absolutely believes that she has the power to cast out devils, just like in season 2, episode 5 of The Chosen. And I
Yeah.
had to go look it up and watch the episode because I wanted to know what she was talking about. She believes
I
that she has
think
the
that
power to cast out devils.
the whole thing with the temple, how they used film basically to what is it? Portray Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden or whatever, and how it is such a new religion that, and then they chose that way to, you know, share that message with people going through the temple. To
Sorry,
me,
I
it
had to
gives
laugh.
off that vibe, or that vibe of, like, comparing it to pop culture.
Yeah,
Okay, 'cause there's
totally.
a movie here in the temple, so go ahead.
It was just Chris Fajtik, I think. Lori Daybell
Watched it,
has the
yeah.
power of Tony Robbins.
Yeah, she does. Look, his
Hey,
family
look,
is
everybody, it's
affected by
Tony
this
Robbins.
too. His family is affected by this movement as well, people in this movement that
Really?
are connected to Tim Ballard, you know, they're from
Mm,
Hawaii over there,
okay.
and so, I love that we actually have each other's numbers, and we send each other stuff all the time, and
Mm,
he really does, like, study and research, Tom Harrison, Tony Robbins,
mm,
the kinda the people that he was way ahead of me with that. I was like, "Whoa."
yeah.
So, and I mean, just the overall picture of what could be going on, and so there's this whole non-linguistic programming. NLP, which are words that are used. I swear to God, Megan, I when I go to read something that was print or created by someone who is, I'm not going to say Mormon, but just, well, I mean, I have to, because basically that's what it is. But when I go to read it out loud, I get so I can't articulate the things that they wrote. It reminds me of when an engineer creates blueprints or whatever, and then they look great on paper, but then whenever you go to apply that, because you're a contractor building a house or something, it don't work because only on paper, So it's just like I hate it because I'm just like, I
Mhm.
sound like I cannot read,
Well,
you know.
it's in speak. There's so much in speak. Like when I first started writing my Mormon chapter in my book, I felt like I had to do a glossary first because
Oh,
you have to explain what all these things mean to people who've never heard
Mormon
of it
speak.
before. And I wanted
Mhm.
to address this comment by Dive Urgent. I don't think Lori was second anointed. They may have done some kind of ceremony that they made up themselves, but you have to
Mhm.
be invited by somebody in the first presidency or in the higher leadership of the church to be second
Which I
anointed.
always thought it could have been Elder Ballard because of the closeness connection with Tim. However, I do talk to Justin with LDS abuse, okay? And he actually did the research. He contacted the people, and so I still need to get back with him on that to find out. I think
That's
Elder
fascinating.
Ballard
I
wasn't
wonder.
in town that weekend because it was the weekend of November 16th through the 18th. If it was a second anointing, it would have been on a Sunday, which is when the temple is closed, allegedly.
I remember
Except
I remember
for
talking with you about this. Yeah.
yeah,
Because second
and
anointings take place on Sundays in the temples because they're
usually
closed to everybody
right.
else.
And so, but people have also crapped on the idea because they're basically everybody's understanding, which I mean, there's not a great understanding because you can go back and read Joseph Smith's tell of it. And I have all the old stuff, but I'm like, they do whatever they want when they want, okay, and how they want. And so you just shut up. You just have to shut up and just take it, basically. And I mean, it's like the Fight Club. You don't talk about the
We
Fight
don't talk
Club,
about Fight Club. Yeah, so if you've
It's
been
the same
second
thing.
anointed, you're not allowed to admit to anybody that you've been second anointed, even if you're
Or
directly asked. Yeah, or
because
yeah,
you
they
can
used to
know.
have these penalties
Right.
in the temple where you agreed that you were going to slit your throat and be disemboweled if you ever told the secrets of the temple.
Yeah.
They stopped doing that in like 1995, I think.
Allegedly.
But the
They might
second
still do it as a second
anointing,
anointing. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, second anointing, from what I understand, is from people who have been second anointed and who've talked about it. From what I understand, is that you have to be invited by one of the higher up leaders of the church,
Actually, the
and it
prophet. And then through the
right
prophet,
down through the channels.
they can do it on behalf of the prophet, but he has to actually approve it,
Right.
allegedly.
So it would be the all of the top 15 dudes
Mhm.
and all of the what they call the quorum of the 70, which please don't ask me to explain that because it's another
It's weird.
bunch of
It does like
made
this.
up gobbledygook. But yeah, it is a pyramid for sure.
Mhm.
So there are basically 125 men in the leadership of the church. They've all been second anointed, most likely, as well as anybody who's ever been a president of a temple or a temple presidency, and most likely anybody who's ever been a mission president.
Oh,
And then in addition, certain people get invited like when they reach a certain age or just they become popular with the
allegedly.
leadership or something like that. That I think it may be a tithing issue. I don't
I
know,
think
but
it's just whatever. I
it's
really
a
do.
cult within a cult within a cult.
It's so crazy, y'all, and there's layer upon layer upon layer. I don't know, to me, the leadership has lost all I don't see integrity. It missed them. I'm still looking for it, for these people, and I mean, I try not to look at them so sinister, so, like, cynical. I don't wanna be cynical. That's not me, but I'm also like, "Yeah, but there's this, and then there's that," and you'd have to really micro compartmentalize everything, and
Hmm.
then just to cope with that, and that's me as an outsider never being an insider. straight up.
when your
So
family's murdered, you're cynical.
yeah,
You're going to be cynical.
and
Right.
I'm trying
Yes.
not to, but
Well,
I'm already past that point.
it's kind of like, Kresha, when I started healing from all the abuse that I'd been through, and I sort of like my eyes became opened to what abusive behavior looks like. And then I became intolerant of it. And it is absolutely okay to be intolerant of abusive and manipulative behavior.
I don't like
And
seeing it.
and when I look at the leadership of the church and I listen to the words that they say, they're not even good people, much less good
No,
Mormons.
no.
They are disrespectful to so many groups of people, especially and including anybody who's left the church. It's like if you've left the church and you're critical, even if the criticism is true, you deserve bad things. Because
Yep.
that's what they tell us when we leave the church. They're like, there's literally a talk called "Where Will You Go?"
What the
And
hell?
it's like, where will you go and what will you
What about
do
me?
if you're not Mormon? Who will talk to you? Who will socialize with you? You will lose all of your blessings and you will
Oh
be
my
under
God.
Satan's power. That's basically what they believe. So for
So nothing's
example,
gonna change, right? I'm just
so
kidding.
when I was a Mormon, if I had lost my job, people would say to me, "Oh, I'm sure that God will bless you with something. I'm sure that God will take care of you and your family.
Oh my
Here,
God.
have some money. Go to the bishop's storehouse and get some food. Do you need help paying your bills this month? Here's some gift cards at Christmas time."
Pity, 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 pity.
But
Like, I'm better than you.
when you leave
Oh
the
my God.
church, "Oh, I lost my job because I broke my covenants with God. I deserve to lose my job. That's my punishment for
You
leaving the
didn't pray
church."
hard enough, so you didn't God hard enough, and so you didn't Mormon hard enough.
Yep.
And then
And
why so you left the church, a lot of people do leave the church, and then they say, why can't you just leave the
you
church
leave the
alone?"
church, but you can't leave it alone. You know why I can't leave it alone? Because I was harmed by the church, because the church continues to harm
Offended.
me, and I will continue to talk about my experiences. And if they make you look bad, that's not my fault.
Yeah, then that's
And
on them.
whenever I go on TikTok is where I do all my ex-Mormon stuff, because the
Really?
ex-Mormon
Oh,
community
I'm
is
going.
really active on TikTok. You
Hell
can
yeah.
find some really funny stuff over there. But
Girl.
every time I talk about Mormonism over there, um, when I say things about the church that are true but are harmful to the reputation of the church, I get people in my comments all the time that say, "How sad that you've traded your eternal salvation for this. How sad that you've joined the ranks of Satan. How sad that you've lost the light in your eyes. How sad that
I've
you've
heard
chosen
that.
evil." It's like
Not me, but
if
I'm sure.
you are not yet a Mormon, come to our church building, come to our
Yeah,
activities. We
I'm
love
good.
you. It's okay that you drink now. You'll quit sometime and become a Mormon. But if I do it
Mm.
as an ex-Mormon, they're like, "You're going to hell. We don't care about you anymore."
Wow. So, what does that tell you? Like, as a Nevermo right here, and proud of it, okay? Or any other religious institution for that matter. I don't need a middleman. You don't either, just letting you know. But, no, I don't wanna be judged here on earth. That's not anybody else's job.
No, it's
It's
not.
not mine either, like, I don't get to judge anybody else, and I'm glad I don't actually have that job because
Yeah.
that's horrific. Like,
And people say, "Oh, the Mormons are just the nicest people I've ever met."
they
Some of
can
them
be,
are. That's true. They can be. But
and
guys,
unless you
the
speak out.
main reason that they're nice to you is because they're trying to convert you. They really do. Like when I was a true believing Mormon, I was counseled all the time to like find an opportunity to have a gospel conversation. So if somebody walks up to you in the grocery store and says, "What beautiful children," I'm supposed to reply with something like, "Thank you so much. You know what? I'm so glad that I have this belief and faith that I'm going to be with my family forever." I'm
I
supposed to
mean, that's
find a
just
way to
too much
start a
right there.
conversation like that because people need to know. Everybody has to be taught. Like there's a prophecy that
And
every single person is going to be taught the gospel at some point. Oh, that's the other thing about heaven
I'll wait till
is
the
that
afterlife.
Mormons believe that if you were not a Mormon, when you go to heaven, you go to a place called spirit prison right
Yeah.
away. And when I asked I was playing with the LDS chatbot the other day. When I
Oh,
asked
they
the
have
LDS,
one? What?
oh yeah, it's fun. It's so fun. I
Everybody's
asked the
gonna go there
LDS
now.
chatbot, why is it that Mormons believe that non-Mormons go to prison when they die? And the chatbot was like, oh, it's not a punishment prison. It's just a holding place where you go until you learn the truth. And so what else are people busy doing in heaven? Preaching the gospel to dead people who aren't Mormon yet.
And showing up to Lori.
Yeah, and showing up to Lori, apparently.
And giving her more speech, more talk, more
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah.
Okay. More lies.
I did an episode a couple weeks ago about what Mormons believe about the afterlife, but I was really rushed because I had another thing that I
Do
had
it
to go
again.
and do. So I need to go back and do it again, because if
Mhm.
non-Mormons knew what Mormons believed about them, what happens to them after this life is over, they would not think that LDS people were so magnanimous.
There you go. Hey, do it as many times as you want. You know, I'm telling you, because I mean, there's so many things that just like just going through this process, and then I'm like, I didn't know what I knew then. Now I know, and so things click different, and so I'm all about that. And Colby too, like how he's doing Sins of Our Mother, all the things that he's
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
You know,
He's
I
doing
mean,
good, great
and
stuff.
then as family members of the victims, you know, I say that's the grace on yourself, you know, like going through this process. Do it as many freaking times as
Yeah.
you need to,
Yeah,
because
that's
it's
true.
healing, you know? It's
Yeah.
healing, and yeah, so no judgment here. And I learned so many
Yeah.
things.
Yeah,
I'm
just
still gonna
ask me all
follow
your
and push
Mormon
back.
questions,
Oh
because I
God,
think
noted.
there's so much about this case that is so Mormon that people can't really understand, because it's like
Mhm.
just even the simple idea of going to the temple every day has such a
Yeah.
complicated answer, you know?
Whenever I heard Heather Daybell with her interview with, Hidden True Crime, you know, back a while back, and she was talking about how she started to have more LDS, like temple paintings or, you know, church related, uh, decorations in her home, and she was going to the temple more often, and I wanna say she said once a week or something, I forget, or a couple times a week, and I was just like, "Oh god, well, isn't that a bit extreme?" And she, you know, she caught it, and she said so whenever she was kinda leaving Mormonism behind, you know, that basically people were like, "Oh, yeah, you were getting kind of, you know, extra, you know, more, I guess, uber, I think is the word she said, or something like that, uber Mormon," you know,
Yeah.
and she was like, "Why didn't y'all tell me then?" So I'm like, "So see, it is a very slippery slope, and not everybody Mormons the same way the next person
Mhm.
Mormons." So
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of family tradition goes into Mormonism as well, because certain families do certain things, don't do
mhm,
certain things. Like in my family, keeping the Sabbath day holy was always like a point of contention, because everybody kind of does it differently. But Mormons
mhm,
don't believe in like going shopping on Sunday or working on Sunday or playing sports on Sunday. But every family sort of
mm,
has their own version of how strict they are about that. For example, I was not allowed to do homework on Sundays. We were not allowed to watch anything on TV that was not like family oriented. So we always watched the Disney Sunday movie like every Sunday night. My dad played
mm.
classical music all day long on Sunday, because
My
we weren't
grandpa
allowed to
would
listen
too.
to like rock music. And I actually
Oh,
love classical music. That I think
it's
that's where some
okay.
of my love of that came. So I'm not mad about that part. But there were
Yeah.
families who, for example, um, you know, people who had kids that were like really good at sports and would be on the high school team going to the state championship or whatever. Oh, my kid can't play on Sunday, you know, or they wouldn't, you know,
Mhm.
they wouldn't allow practices on Sunday and stuff like that. And I was so Mormon that a Mormon opera director asked me to audition for his opera on a Sunday. And I was like, I is it okay to do that? Because it's an audition, so it's kind of like a job interview, and I felt really awkward about it, and he sort of chuckled a little bit and was like, It'll be fine. You can come audition. You're singing a song. You'll be fine." But I was so Mormon that I had angst over that. You know, I was like, "Oh my gosh, a Mormon is asking me to break a Mormon rule. What do I do?"
Yeah. So sorry for the things that Megan said when she was Mormon.
I am sorry for everything that I said to everyone when I was
Oh,
actually I was not one of those judgmental Mormons that told people they were going to hell and stuff like that. I tried to be
why
really
not?
inclusive and loving towards everybody. The
And
only time
browbeat
that
everybody?
the only time that I did say stuff that I regretted was when Prop 8 was coming out and
Mm,
same-sex marriage was on the ballot and all of that kind of stuff. I had so much cognitive dissonance about that because it didn't feel right to me to deny marriage to gay people, but I felt like I had to be
mm,
Mormon about it. And
right.
so I'm sure I said some hurtful things to people during that era, but I very quickly got to the point where I was like, okay, no, I don't care what the church says
And
about this.
and
It's
we can
wrong.
I'm ignorant, okay, as the day is long, okay, straight up. I never try to, like, intentionally, like, inflict pain on anybody else, but I know the things that I ignorantly speak about, yeah, and so I'm sorry for all the things I said in an ignorant state, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's not on purpose, it's never intentional, but I get to a point where if I really sat here and just kept with the disclaimers, the disclaimers, the disclaimers, I mean, I've done it, I've tried,
Yeah.
and I can't
Yeah.
even talk my way out of a wet paper bag as it is. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I just kinda had to I feel like and so this is all just probably invisible to anyone on the
Yeah.
outside, but inside, I was like, I have to make a choice between pissing a lot of people off, even that means even the people who are in Rexburg who are also hurting, who
Yeah.
still belong to this faith
Yeah.
and who actually work on the fence for the kids, and I'm just like, "Oh god," and it was such it
Yeah. It's
ripped
a
me
hard,
apart,
yeah. This
but I
is a
wanted
good
to speak to their
question.
truth.
Yeah. From Sweet Carol Ann, that I think is important to address. She says, I recently went back to my Catholic church after many, many years. Do you miss the actual God part, the actual feelings of being in a house of God? And that's a sticking point for a lot of Mormons because they believe that when you get baptized, you receive the gift of the Holy Ghost, which means that the Holy Ghost can be with you all the time as long as you're being
It
good and
can,
Mormon.
if you're Catholic.
And they teach you that whenever you have a good feeling, it's coming from God. And whenever you have a bad feeling, it's coming from Satan. And so that's why they say, like, you're never going to feel happy again because you can't have the Holy Ghost with you. So they believe that they have a monopoly on euphoria. And when I left the church, that was one of the things I wrestled with the most was that, like, oh, I thought I'd had all of these spiritual confirmations of the Holy
Wow.
Ghost telling me that this is true. What do I do about that? And what I realized is that I had the same happy, good, euphoric feelings, that same warm feeling sometimes when I was listening to a beautiful piece of music, or sometimes when I was out in nature, or sometimes when I was um, serving people or just doing something good for someone. And I will never forget that as a true believing Mormon, I was in New York City and I went for the first time into the big cathedral. I think it's St. Matthew's, the huge, huge one on Fifth Avenue. And I remember walking in there and just having this beautiful, peaceful feeling come over me. And I was so confused because I thought that Mormons had a monopoly on the Holy Ghost. And I
Wow.
realized at that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a house of God where faithful people come to worship. Of course, it feels peaceful in here. And I thought about all of the craftsmen who, you know, made those paintings and those sculptures and built the walls and all of that. And I felt the same way about that beautiful building as I did when I went into the Salt Lake Temple for the first time and thought about the pioneers who sacrificed to build that building and how beautiful that was as like a sacrifice to their God. And it was the first time in the cathedral that I was like, oh, I can feel this feeling outside of Mormonism. That's amazing. And so now
Mhm.
that I'm fully out, I feel that feeling all the time when I'm out in nature, when I'm spending time with my kids, when I'm experiencing any kind of beauty or awe or wonder in my life. So no, I don't miss that feeling because I've found so many more places where I can feel it now.
Uh, I second that. I think that, God is, with you all the time, and you have that Holy Spirit, so to speak, all the time. And I mean, I remember being so thankful and grateful that I caught all the red lights that I did, and then only to find out that whenever I did catch up, right ahead of me was a bad accident, I'm like, "Oh,
Mm,
okay." So it's just like sometimes just it's okay, that things happen the way they do.
yeah.
Whatever. I don't know. It's different for everybody, but I just definitely don't need somebody throwing judgment on me, and I definitely don't believe I have to confess anything that I do here on earth. I can have that conversation in my head with my
Yeah.
God, and he knows my heart. He made it. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
Your body is your temple. So it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, look at how Jesus was. I'm not a very religious person, but I'm very spiritual, like
Mhm.
I don't know. I just don't like seeing religious institutions spiritually abusing people
Yeah.
as a means
I
of
agree.
control. And I'm
Yeah.
learning more and more and more about that, and it's more and more disgusting.
Yeah, and there's this saying, I think that my therapist told me, that religion is for people who are scared of hell and spirituality is for people who've been there.
There you go.
And
Hey,
for
I like
me,
that.
my religion was part of my hell. And so
There
I'm
you
really
go.
happy to be out of it.
And you left both of
So
them.
I consider myself to be a very spiritual person. I am a very spiritual person. I
Yeah.
have no idea what God really is, except
Who
for,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know
Force.
what is true about God. I really don't,
Mhm.
because I believe that anytime that human beings get involved in trying to interpret something that is
Mhm.
infinite and eternal and incomprehensible, they're going to get it wrong. So I don't know that necessarily any human beings have the right answers about
Right.
what God is, who God is, or any of that stuff. But what I do know is that, dang it, I'm going to cry again.
Mhm.
What I do know is that when I contemplate my place in the universe, and I think about the fact that I am made from the same material that the whole universe is made of, I
Mhm.
am made of stardust. And every
Yeah.
single person on the earth who ever lived or who ever will live is also made of stardust. And so I
Mm.
am connected to every single human being as part
Mhm.
of the human family. That's what I know. And if there's somebody who organized all of this and put it all together, thank you. And if
Yeah.
there's not, what an incredibly miraculous, valuable, and precious and beautiful thing we have.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Say it for everybody in the back pew. I'm serious, for real. That's beautiful, and I too don't know who source is, and even people who've had near death experiences or whatever. I mean, okay, I respect their experience. I'm not saying that they didn't have that, but I'm also saying
Yeah,
that nobody knows, and so nobody, like you said, nobody gets to interpret that for me. I just
yeah,
know I feel like I came from source, whatever source is, and so like you said, thank God or thank you for giving me this experience. It's really
yeah.
I didn't come here as a rock or a blade of grass, like Julie Rose says. So, or table or wood or anything else for that matter,
Yeah,
but who's to say? They're not the boss of me. Okay?
exactly, exactly. Nobody
So,
gets to tell you. Yeah,
yeah, that's a good one right there. Meanwhile, we should be asking forgiveness from those other humans that we wronged. That
yeah,
and we should give them grace as well because
absolutely. Because I mean, none of us really
we're
fully
humaning.
understand someone else's experiences and what they've been through. And when people screw up and do stupid things, even when they hurt me now, I look at them and I say, um, I don't know what you went through, but whatever it was, it must have sucked for you to treat me this way, you know?
Right. Yeah. I agree. What got me to come to terms with death was JJ and Tylee and Charles. Um,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, I started flying on airplanes and even by myself, and it's just
Mm,
like I just wasn't scared anymore. Like I just kind
mm,
of thought like if they had to endure what the hell they had to go through, it's the least I can do is live. I can live. And like, if I don't show up, I don't get to experience that, to be able to tell about it or to talk
Yeah.
about it or to understand as fully as I can. But they taught me that,
Mm.
to not be scared of dying. And I used to be scared of dying. My daughter's actually questioning this right now. And I'm just like, you just don't. I mean, and I remember doing that
Yeah.
so often. And it ruled my entire life.
Yeah.
Opportunities that I would take or turn down, or flying, something as simple as flying. My mom was
Yeah.
like, anywhere, I will take you anywhere. And I was just like, no, no, thank you. I'm good. But I also had an uncle die in a plane crash in Joplin,
Yeah.
Missouri. So, I mean, there's traumatic things that happen. And anyways, we're all on our own different walks of life. And I
Yeah.
appreciate that you all come here long enough to share with us,
Of course. I love that you're able to fly now, and that you got that from the kids. I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful. I think
It's
that's awesome.
there's so many things that their lives teach me. Them being here and leaving the way they did, even, like, I will never, ever, I sound like Tim Ballard, ever thank Chad and Lori for this experience. Okay. I'm not Melanie Gibb. I'm not gonna be like, okay. And she was so grateful that she got to experience it so up close. And I'm thinking, girl, hold
She's
my
cr
earrings.
I'm sorry. I
Talk
have
about
words that I
judgmental.
want to say, but I will not.
Do it in a strongly worded letter and then burn it
Yes.
or
I enjoy
whatever, or
burning
send it to
letters.
her. Right.
The
But I
devilish
don't know.
little heathen that I am.
Well, somebody's got to do the outer darkness. Got to represent.
That's right. If I'm going
Being
to outer
apostate,
darkness anyway, I might as well look
dragging
the
you
part.
down.
I might as well
Right.
show my shoulders whenever I want. There. What do you think about that?
Oh my God. I don't know. Just all we can do is just be the best humans possible. That's it.
Yeah.
And I look at everybody as my brother and sister, like, and so in the God scheme of things, I'm just like, God wants all his children back, not just those that pay tithing, or those that are worthy Mormons, or those that go and confess to a priest every before communion. It's not
Yeah.
about that. It's just about, he wants all his children. So just don't be an asshole. It's so simple.
It
It's
is really
simple.
simple. It is really simple. Do no harm. The Hippocratic Oath, right? Like, it just seems
There you
like
go.
I wish that religious leaders had to take that oath too, because I think they
Your
do
prophet
believe
did,
that.
or the prophet did.
Well, they do
Think about
believe
it.
that they're making that promise or whatever, but it's like
Mhm.
they don't see the harm that they're doing because they're not the ones
It's
being
sad.
harmed by it. There are
Right.
so many white, cisgendered, heterosexual men who have absolutely no problem with Mormonism because they benefit the most from it,
Hmm.
And so they absolutely don't believe that the church does anything wrong. They don't it does
It's
You
a
don't
very
see
privileged
it.
spot to be in.
Yeah, you don't see it until it happens to you, until it happens up close,
Mhm.
and I think that if more people would consider that, um, the world would be a much better place.
Mhm.
Just
Exactly.
just try to have a little empathy and put yourself in the position of the other person. Just try to think about how they feel in the spot that they're in, and consider how they might like to be treated in that spot.
If it were
It's
you,
like
treat
I know
others as you
so
want
many
to be treated.
Mormons. Yeah, I know so many Mormons who are on the wrong side of Prop 8 until they had a gay family member. I
Mhm.
know so many people who were hateful towards transgender people until they had a transgender child.
Yeah.
I know so many people who just were so Mormon and so myopic
Mhm.
that they
Lost
can't
themselves.
consider other people's experiences until something comes and touches them personally,
You have to walk
you
in those
know?
shoes, right.
Yeah,
It's like with the murders, I don't want, and I've heard you say it before, we don't want people to go through this,
yeah,
ever. But, I learned the hard way too. Not that anything I did brought this on, but I'm just saying, it's
yeah,
just like, oh, it makes me realize a lot of things about my own self-reflection, it's just
Yeah.
like, oh, you kind of self-aware and oh, I do this or I did that. Watching Ruby Frankie stuff and the exploitation go on, and so I was like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, I'm not going to show my kids at all, like, because that's the one thing I can do to protect them, and they don't have they're not consenting, it's just like,
Yeah.
here, and you're throwing them to the wolves. I don't want to be responsible for any of that. So it's just
Yeah.
I've learned so many things through this case and like just the world around me.
Yeah,
It's
and
opened
I
a
have
lot
a
of things.
theory too. I too believe, like Jenny Allison, that the world would be a lot better place if more people could have empathy and compassion for other people. And I
Yeah,
believe that it starts with you.
within. Yes.
If
I
you don't
learned.
love
Oh,
yourself, you cannot love other people well. You
amen.
have to forgive yourself or you can't forgive other people. You have
Yep.
to embrace the dark parts of yourself in order to understand the dark parts of other people. And you have to acknowledge the dark parts of yourself and integrate and love them
Mm,
because they have a place in you too. And if you don't do that, the dark part becomes
mm.
isolated and exiled and it starts trying to fight its way out. And I believe that what happened
Right.
with Lori is that
Resentment, anger. Mm.
resentment and anger built up. I think there was legitimately some abuse, although that's speculation on my
I do
part.
too. I'm speculating
But
right there with you.
but knowing how Janice and Barry are and how my parents were and how
Mhm.
controlling the religion is, I absolutely believe that Lori felt inadequate and was
Alone
desperate for approval and
and
love and
addiction.
acceptance and didn't find it. And the reason why she became the way she did is because she stuffed down all of that anger and resentment about not
Yes.
being accepted, and
Yeah.
she became her dark parts.
And she couldn't help it. It was just, it erupted, and, yeah, you can't control the dark parts that come out of you and reach out and touch everybody, and I think that is so key. That is so key right here.
Yep,
Lori
that's what
can't
my
stand herself. She, does not love herself. That's
yeah,
what I see, totally. And
yep,
so, because of that, she was never capable of being a mother,
mhm,
unconditional love, because she's never received it, I don't believe. Not
right,
from her church, not from her I would say her parents, that's me,
nope,
alleging that, because you can see it in her. You can through her actions, by ye fruits ye shall know. And so
yeah,
they're pretty rotten fruits. And it's sad because hurt people in that sense. And
yep,
that kinda comes to life for me with that hurt people thing, and it's
yeah,
very true, I think.
yeah.
I'm not saying it's
Carl
the know all be all, but
yeah, Carl Jung was a psychoanalyst, and he had this, he talks about archetypes, like we all have an inner critic, we all have a,
mm,
warrior part, all of that stuff. He talked about the shadow as a part, of your psyche, and he used to say that
mhm.
if you don't learn to embrace and integrate the shadow, you become the shadow.
We don't wanna
And
be the
no, and actually,
Can
I
you imagine
announced
if
on
everybody was the shadow? Oh my god.
yeah, I announced on my channel this morning that I'm opening a new channel. I'm still
What?
gonna have the Midlife Revolution podcast, it will still be there, but I have a new channel now called Shadow Side Stories, and it's
Uh-oh.
where I'm gonna discuss, um, other true crime cases in the context of what I've done with Lori's case, pointing out the manipulative behaviors, pointing out the shadow parts, and teaching people how to defend against that and
Wow.
how to not be bullied and
Uh,
controlled by manipulative people. So, there's absolutely nothing on it right now. It's
mm,
completely empty because I'm working on the first
yes.
few episodes, but I will put the URL in here in case you wanna go subscribe.
Yeah, Angela Davis said she's subbed. So, yeah, yeah. That's awesome. I'm glad. Actually, I don't know if you know Mormon True Crime, but I love her. I found
No,
her
I don't
during
actually. I think she
yeah,
was on my stream
she
this
does
morning.
Mormon True Crime. Yeah, she does. And they actually have something with Exmo Joe coming up in like 30 something hours. So
Yes,
I'm
Exmo
looking
Joe
forward to it.
started his own church, the Church of Korihor,
Oh shit.
which
You damn
if you're
call me
not
a whore.
if you're not Mormon, the story of Korihor in the Book of Mormon, Korihor is like an
Ooh,
antichrist guy, and the legend goes that he denied that God existed, and then the prophet said, "Okay, he said something like, if your God really exists, then why doesn't he strike me dumb?" And lo
I
and
hate that.
behold, he got struck dumb, and then he ended
Oh,
up being
like Chad.
killed
I'm
in
just
an
kidding.
yeah, he ended up being killed in an ignominious manner. Um,
What does
and
that
so
mean?
it means like very public and very brutal and awful.
They stoned
Um,
him. So
no, it was something about
okay.
his body being dragged through the streets by dogs or something like that. Um, yes, ma'am,
That's
Miss
awesome,
Jackson. Every
Jackson.
day, 100%. A
I'm sorry.
member of the LGBTQ community right here. Um, but
Oh
so he
no.
started the Church of Korihor because um, it was like
And
the worst figure in the Book of Mormon.
I mean,
But I
that's what
love
Melanie
him.
Gibbs straight up called Lori.
Oh
And
yeah,
she was like,
you're a
"Oh,
Korihor.
I have to have a reason for this." I
Yeah,
mean, you can call her a murderer, uh, what is it, filicide, whatever. You can call her an adulterer. You can call her all the things, but don't call her a lukewarm damn Mormon. Don't call her no core whore because she needs to have an answer on this. And I was
yeah.
just like, that blew me away. When I first heard that, I was like, "What? What did she say? What is that? Who? What?" I even made
Isn't
a
that one
shirt,
of the
and I was
things that
like,
made you
hashtag
want to?
#Core. Yes, I was like, "What? How Mormon
Yeah,
is this?" Oh, let me tell you.
yeah,
So, I
and
had
then
to look up to make sure I wasn't, like, doing, blasphemy or something, and I was like, "Who the hell's Squidward?" So I looked, and I was like, "Oh, okay, Antichrist, okay."
yeah,
Good.
yeah. Yeah, isn't it funny, as I don't know, sometimes when we think we know something and then when we find out something different, we think it's really silly that we thought that thing at one point, you
Yes,
know?
yes, I feel so dumb or gullible or
Yeah, like
naive
there
or
was
fell
so
for
much
it.
superstition around
Mm,
Korihor, around the word Korihor, and around all of that stuff when I was Mormon, you know? So, oh
mhm.
yay, I'm glad people thank you for subscribing.
Yeah,
I'm glad
I'm gonna
people are
go as soon
excited.
as we get off here. Like, I love supporting what you do. I like following what you
Oh, thank
do. I like talking to you. So,
Yeah,
there's
this is
that.
fun, like, I feel like we're just on the phone together, but there's,
I
like,
know.
people watching and
Less
listening.
hours. Less hours.
Yeah, so I actually have pots to stir, so I need to jump
Okay.
off, but this has been awesome. I don't know how long have we been on here, like 2.5 hours or something? It's crazy.
2
Like,
hours and 49 minutes, girl.
I
But
mean,
that's okay.
I could talk about this stuff all day because,
Mhm.
I think it's so important,
It
and
is.
I'm really grateful to be connected to you because I think a lot of people out there have these types of questions, but I don't know what to talk about unless somebody specifically tells me, like, "I don't
Right.
understand this thing,"
Yeah.
right? So it's
You
so
text me and you
helpful.
said, "You can ask me whatever Mormon questions." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I have tons all the time." So,
Yeah.
I don't know if I would rather just off the cuff or like, I
No,
don't do
seriously.
I set you up so that you kinda
Well,
know what I'm gonna ask or what? We
I
could do
don't
a
I don't
affinity
mind
post.
like, off the cuff and being surprised by it, but, like, for you, if you
Mm.
wanna, like, just write down a topic or
Yeah.
something that you wanna know about, and we can do little mini like, we'll do a
Here
mini
you
topic.
go.
We'll just stick to one topic, how's that? Because that's when we
Allegedly.
get together
Okay.
and we start talking
Mhm.
about all the different things, like, we could talk about all the things,
Yeah.
but if
I'll
we
take my
just stick to one
medicine
topic.
before before we do. Okay. Alright.
Yeah.
She's a
Yeah.
pot stirrer too, so you go, girl. Yeah, I have some pots to bang around too, so
Yeah.
yeah. I have
Yeah, the
wooden
new
spoons
channel is
and all.
called Shadow Side Stories.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we're gonna support you. I'm gonna go find you on TikTok too. Yeah, I'll be in the
Thanks, yeah.
comments.
Oh, for sure, I can't wait, I can't
Yeah,
wait.
that's
I'm
where it
so happy
happens.
that we got connected, and
Mm,
I love your parents so much, I can't wait to
you're
spend more
alright.
time with them. I really just need to j just get in the car and go drive and see them. I
Yeah,
really, like it's so rare to find good people and to have a connection with good people that that's all I care about now is just spending time with good people, you know,
They're
so.
moving right now, and so, I mean, that's kinda going on, and so I know they're preoccupied with that,
Yeah.
and, but I mean, they've invited you already, so and you're always
Yeah.
welcome here, but, you can also I can go show you where Uncle Charles went to high school and some
Mhm.
other things too. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just kinda I don't know, I think it would be fun. There's also a hotel that's a casino as well, so, I mean, there's all kinds of things like that to do, but you could just come visit
Yeah,
and just
I would love to. I wish that I
bring
had known Charles
your
better and
partner.
had been able to spend more time with him, you know? I saw him
Yeah,
at a few family gatherings. I was at his baptism, but I just didn't know him very well, but, you know, he just seemed like such a kind and genuine
he
person,
was.
you know?
He really
But it
was.
was but it was always just, like, the Coxes always gave me the ick, and so it was always hard for me to, like, have that cognitive dissonance of, like, well,
And
this is
to be
family, so
around
I should be
yeah.
spending time with them, and I should feel good about spending time with them, but I don't. I feel icky, and I don't know
I wonder if
why.
Lori would have felt threatened even with I don't know why that went through my mind, but just, like, if you were to, I don't know, have engaged more maybe, you know how she is,
Oh,
like, with how Chad oh, they're dark now, you know, basically,
well,
so
I mean, if Lori and I had interact well, I first of all should say one of the main reasons that we didn't interact more and why I stopped kind of, when I started distancing myself was when she
yeah,
started, um, talking bad about Joe. And I'm just
yeah,
gonna use that language instead of saying what she said because I was so dumbfounded and baffled by that, that I was like, "I don't know who is right and who is wrong, but I've been on the wrong side of Lori before, and I've got my own stuff going on over here." Like, that was the year that
mhm,
my marriage probably was the worst, and so, um and then I stayed in for another, like, 10 years. So
right?
I just could not I could not be in proximity to her, you
Yeah,
know? It felt so wrong to me.
threatening or
Yeah, no, not
a
threatening,
little
just
bit of everything,
it
I'm
was like
sure.
I knew she was
Toxic.
not a healthy person, and I did not want
Mhm,
any more healthy people to be close to
mhm.
me anymore,
I
you
get it.
know?
No, I totally get that. I do.
So,
They're so I can't stand drama filled I don't like drama, period. It makes me
yeah.
very uneasy, and I don't know how to navigate around that, you know? I don't like people just no. I don't wanna have to pick a side. I'm not trying to make anybody else pick a side. Like, if I have to do
Yeah.
that, then we don't need to be around each other anyway, so
Yeah, so true.
yeah, yeah. But I appreciate it, and I'm gonna go sub and yeah. I'll be subbing. So thank y'all for showing up today,
Yeah, thanks
and,
for being here. Thanks for inviting me on your channel.
I appreciate it. I wish I could, do more than one thing at a time whenever I'm talking on here. I'm just like, I'm one
Oh, I
track.
can't either.
So
Yeah, if I
anything
get
outside
distracted, it's over.
yeah, I saw that you had text, but anyways, so here, I'm
It's fine.
answering you. That's how I answer, but,
All right. Well,
uh,
thank you, beautiful humans, for being here. Thanks for your questions and your comments and your support. All my people, make sure you subscribe to Kresha's channel. All the people who came over here from Third Verse from that, and we will be back tomorrow morning in some form or fashion. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like yet, but I will be. If the hearing is streamable, I will
yeah,
stream it on my channel. If it's
and me
not, I'm
too,
going to do
and
the
then
same
we'll
thing I did today. Yeah.
But yeah, I live on Cox Road, so that's the funny part, sweet Melissa. That's why I laugh.
TOX? Really?
Straight up. I'm like,
No
that's the
way.
only coincidence in this mother
No
effer,
way. That is
Yes,
wild. Oh my gosh.
Cox Mother Crackin' Road.
That's
Straight up.
crazy. That is
Before all
crazy.
this happened, so there's that. Anyway, hi guys.
Kresha's channel is difficult research, so
Yeah,
subscribe to Kresha's channel. All right, love you
thank y'all.
guys. Love
Bye.
you, Kresha.